Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad sound. It's just very, very different.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully all of you are here today for VKEI Today. Visual KE from 2010 to today. Don't worry, in case you don't know what VKEI is, we're going to cover a very brief opening part. Sorry, I was wrestling with my microphone. I don't know why. It was mine was like upside down. It was really bothering me.
You're upside down.
No, my mic really was. See how you guys are right side up? Mine was like this. And I was like, why can't I get it to point up? Anyway.
Sorry.
Yeah, this is an all ages panel, thank you. Anyhow, let's get some introductions out of the way. Very first, we stand in order. We never do this. Very first on my far left.
Hi guys, I'm Kaz. I'm a writer for A to J. I don't remember what I put in my bio.
You're not the writer for A to J.
I am the owner of A to J as of last month, and I'm also a makeup artist on the side.
And right in the middle right here.
Hi, so I'm Eunice. This is Hama. We're the fashion correspondent. I am a designer. I am a designer from Mahamachi Designs, which caters to dogs and owners. So we make outfits, cosplay, yada yada yada. And yeah, I'm a writer for A to J as well. And yeah, just sorry, this file is really updated. So
Yeah. And I am Manuel, the pretty much the leader of A to J Connections. I run a lot of stuff. And we've mentioned A to J Connections like 8 billion times in those intros. For those who don't know, A to J Connections, we're a Japanese culture website. We focus a lot on music, but we also cover everything like video games, you know. We do a lot of stuff with like plays, and we interviewed a Takadasaka actress, you know, recently. We cover everything. We have a podcast every week. On Tuesdays, actually more about idols. But we have a podcast, and I host that as well. So that's all of our stuff. If you go to Facebook, just look up A to J Connections, you'll find us there. If you want to know more about us. So, let's jump right into it. So, who doesn't know what Visual Kei is? Okay, good. I'm glad I put this in here. There are a couple times where I'm like, I don't really want to go over the basics, but I feel like I should because this panel mainly deals with like modern VK. But I don't want to like, you know, just jump into it there like, you know, straight ahead. So, Visual Kei, let's pull this whole slide up actually. So Visual Kei, those who know what it means literally visual, and then K, what did you do?
sorry, that's my fault.
What did you do? Okay, I did not know the spacebar did that. No, I want to leave the next one up for a second. Visual meaning the word visual in English, and K meaning style. Now the whole point is this refers to the look, not the sound. Now what band is that, Kaz, on the right?
What if I say I don't?
You know who that band is. It's X Japan. Now everyone pretty much knows, or everyone associates the term Visual Kei with X Japan because on the cover, I don't have a picture of it. On the cover of, on their Blue Blood album, which was like their major debut, they had crime of visual, psychedelic violence, crime of visual shock written on, and that was their slogan, and that's where pretty much Visual Kei came to be. So they're important to know. But there are a ton of other groups, you know, we can talk about from those early days. X was their original name, by the way, X Japan. What's funny about X Japan, does anyone know who X Japan is, by the way?
Yeah. Who doesn't know who they are?
Okay. Unfortunately, I don't have a music clip of them in this panel, but they're one of the more, obviously, as I said, they pretty much created the genre, so to speak, by coining the name. But they're still around today. And what's really interesting is, if you remember that picture on the first slide, they don't really look like that anymore. But to this day, Yoshiki, the leader of the band, he's the drummer, the pianist, the songwriter, to this day, he will still call the band Visual Kei. Like there was an interview they did a couple years back where he's like, oh, how do you describe your sound? It's like, oh, we're Visual Kei, like that's this Japanese, you know, genre. So I think that's pretty interesting to know, because a lot of these bands kind of jump back and forth on that. Now, for those who don't know, it was a really, really big genre in the late 80s, early 90s, and by that I mean it was a commercially big genre. Like these were like, not necessarily like the consistent #1, you know, top of the charts type bands, but they were up there. Some early big bands, Bucktig, Derlinger, Color, Bisexual, Lunacy. Anyone know these names? Nice. Everyone knows Bucktig. We have a bit more about them later on. Derlinger is a bit more obscure, but they're awesome. Color, Bisexual, and Lunacy. Lunacy is kind of the sister group, so to speak, to X Japan. What's going on in the other room? I can turn my stuff louder, don't worry. So yeah, and the popularity spread to other media, sorry. So we're gonna watch some early clips, just to get you a little situated here. The OG band, so to speak. Now, it's interesting to note because how would you say you think any band still living that today?
Definitely not. There hasn't been any recent bands that sound like that. Well, they can try to mimic the sound.
It's key to note that, like I mentioned earlier, and keep this in mind for the entire panel, especially if you're new to Visual Kei, is as was stated at the very beginning, it's Visual Kei. It's more looks over, over sound. I don't mean to say that like the looks are more important. I mean, what defines a group of Visual Kei is typically more the look than the actual musical sound.
Because like once we get into it, when you listen to Visual Kei, there's so many subgenres.
Yeah.
It can be so poppy, and then it can be like really hardcore metal. But as long as you look the part, you would be considered Visual Kei.
The thing about Visual Kei, it's very time capsule-y. It shows the era that like it was popular. Like right here, it was definitely influenced by like 80s glam rock.
Glam rock, hair metal.
So yeah.
And speaking of that, pretty much in the 90s when kind of Visual Kei became in its own, and there's what we know as the Kami 4 in the 90s. And the Kami 4 is Shazna, Fanatic Crisis, Lakura Christie, and of course Melis Miser. Everyone knows Melis Miser. I make the joke all the time, like in panels and podcasts and what have you, that Melis Miser is kind of like, baby's first VK band. Because even to this day, even though they've been broken up, like you could say that they're on hiatus for like 20 years, but even though they've been broken up, like since like 2002, I believe, I don't remember the exact year off the top of my head. A lot of people discover Visual Kei through them. To be fair, I did as well. I'm a bit older, so I actually discovered them when they were still mildly active. Like they broke up I'm like, oh, I get into this band. They break up later that year, But yeah, so even myself, it's kind of what everyone gets into. So we're gonna watch some clips of theirs as well before we jump into the more central parts of the panel. Now I only have clips of 3 of them, just for time. So the Kami 4 or the Kami 3, as it were. Okay, there you go. modern VK. So let's keep moving along. So we're talking about a bit about VK from the early 2000s. Now, who got into VK before 2010? Out of curiosity. Okay, myself as well. So you might remember things were quite a bit different back then. In terms of like who was around and what some of the popular genres were, so to speak. Now, you're going to hear us talk about genres. I should put subgenres there, to be honest. I think I've said that many times in this panel, we've done it before. I should put subgenres there, because we're going to talk about subgenres a lot. And there's actually a reason we're going to get towards the middle about why that's kind of important, especially for today. But back then, a lot of subgenres were represented. We're naming some of the big groups from this period. Cafe, Sug, Miyavi, Moi, Gact, etc. Goes on and on. And obviously these groups are still active, but are they really the same? Now for those who don't know, Cafe, technically they still exist, because Miku's Miku's the vocalist, and he's continuing the band, but they pretty much called it quits.
Yeah.
Sug is broken up. Wait, Sug? No, Sug is still around. Sorry, Sug is still around. Sug is still around. Oh, you're right. Sorry. I'm confusing it with Sid. Sorry,
Yeah.
my head is all
Sug
over
is
the place.
gone, unfortunately. That's
Sug
what we
broke up
remember.
as well. I forgot that we have a segment on talking to from Sug later on. But Sug, of course, broke up. Miyavi is not quite the same, like from the way he was back then. Everyone says he mellowed out when he, got married and whatnot. And Monisma is still kind of around, but Mana-sama, of course, Mana's in the middle right there. Everyone kind of knows, well, Mana pretty much is more focused on fashion, on his fashion line as opposed to music, and so on.
Auntie's still around.
And this is the period where a lot of these groups became popular overseas. This is where a lot of people got into it, for a lot of reasons. The very obvious one is in the 2000s, the internet's big, anime conventions are big. I remember I first saw Mana when he came to Anime Expo in 2006 or something like that. And I was already into this music for a long time before this, but he came in Anime Expo in 2006. I think that same year, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe it was 2007, Kamijo came to Anime in NorCal he came by himself as part of, he was Loren, but he came by himself. And a lot of the musicians have come around then. Blood was around a lot back then, etc. And of course, Miyavi had concerts. Everyone knows Skin was the big super group they had in 2007 at Anime Expo, and so on. So, now let's talk about what VK the scene is now. Now, this is a pretty big thing I feel, is we kind of jumped over it, but a lot of those groups that we talked about at the very beginning, a lot of them disbanded. For, obviously, because, we're talking about groups in the 80s, so we're talking like groups that, formed 30 years ago. So in the 2010s, which moving on to about this period we're going to be talking about this panel, is a lot of them came back. Bisexual, that was the group that was the end of that panel. I don't mean at the end of that clip that I showed at the very beginning. They came back as bisex. Of course, Extrapan reformed in 2007, and Lunacy reformed in 2010. And a lot of bands that had risen to prominence in the early 2000s had come back. Like Monty Small, for example, had a minor hiatus, so to speak, 2009. They came back with the new, re-recorded album, which, to be honest, that was pretty much it. But they came back. I believe that, then, of course, Cafe had their first hiatus. They came back. I think Sug had a very brief one as well. So we're seeing a lot of that. But a lot of these came with style changes. Does anyone know who that group is on the right there? Anyone know? I don't know. Is there a hand? Huh? That's Lunacy. Now, if you remember, the very first clip I showed in this panel, the very first music clip, well, not the very first one, the first one was Jupiter, but the first clip I showed in the panel proper was that song Precious with the guy with the long black hair and I mentioned the blue shot. That was Lunacy. And look at Lunacy now. They almost have like a casual look. They kind of got some, their hairstyles going on, but they're a lot more casual. Now, Extrapan. They literally created the term visual Kei. Now, I have a beef with Extrapan. And it has nothing to do with what you're probably thinking. Now, do you recognize that picture?
Yes.
Do you want to? Okay, who does not recognize that picture? Okay, the reason I ask this is because for the past, Energy Connections has been around for about 4 years now. And since my very first press release I ever got from X Japan that I got from their overseas promoter, that has been their promotional image. And it has not changed in years. And that's my personal beef with X Japan. It's like there's also a Yoshiki image. I don't know if anyone's a fan of Yoshiki. If you ever see a black and white photo where he's doing this,
Yeah, I know.
that's the photo that they've been giving. Well, that's a bit newer, but those two photos, I'm like, please, I don't want to write about them anymore because that's always the picture they give for them. And that picture looks like it was taken like in a Sears photo studio, and it bothers me to no end. I'm sorry, that's just my random tirade there. But it's really, I mentioned it to a friend, I'm just so over X Japan, not because I don't like their music, not because I'm tired of their album that's never going to come out, which is a whole other story, but it's because they won't update that picture. Anyway, who has not seen the We Are X documentary?
I haven't.
I recommend anyone who is either a fan of Visual Kei or wants a primer on it. Not even, honestly, it's a good movie in general, but it's an amazing, amazing documentary. Check it out. I don't know if it still is, but I think it was on Hulu or Amazon Prime. I forget which service.
It's on Netflix.
It was on Netflix. It was on. I don't know if it still is, but it was on the video service. Check it out. If not, I'm sure there's a way to watch it. Online. I think legally. I'm not saying anything else, but yeah, I'm pretty sure there is. So go watch it if you can. And there's regular screens of it. It's awesome. But so they've been riding a crazy new wave of popularity. They of course headline Coachella this year, but they co-headline Coachella this year, or pseudo co-head. They headline one of the stages. Of course, Beyonce headline Coachella, but yeah, they've been pretty mainstream. I think Yoshiki has a concert in 2 weeks or next week. I forget exactly when.
That whole thing with Attack on Titan too.
Yeah, and of course, so yeah. They're still waiting for that new album that's supposed to feature Marilyn Manson and so on.
They took a selfie together, that makes it special.
But anyway, and one of my favorite bands, I like to talk about them a lot because they came out, Secular Shem by the way. I like to pick a band here and talk about them. They're my favorite, so I left them in here. They formed 1999, which is pretty much the end of the big heyday of VK, so to speak, when it was huge. And they toured through the US twice. If anyone, I think in 2004, they were in Anaheim Convention Center at PMX, the very first Pacific Media Expo, PMX 2004? 6, doesn't matter. Anyway, they were here. They were at a couple other conventions as well. What's cool about them, we don't have a whole segment on it, we've had other panels before. They're known for incorporating a lot of cosplay into their styles. And Secular Shem is kind of interesting because when they broke up, a lot of the members went on to a lot of the groups. There's Dako, there's Mixed Figure Inc., the Beethoven, Ninja Man Japan. I could just keep naming groups that members went into various roles. And there's even still some to this day that are reforming, and we'll get to that towards the end. And they had a couple reunion tours, and they basically came back. What's cool about them is for all the talk about the old guard returning, the changes in the look, X Japan looking different, Lunacy looking different, they pretty much stayed the same. We'll watch a little clip of theirs before we move on from this segment. Now, before we jump into the new bands, it's important to mention that a lot of groups, a lot of these Visual Kei artists, some of them have never.
Yes?
She can't touch the screen with her
I
glasses.
can't. Look at the...
Why is the font different there? Anyway,
It's your fault.
I know it probably is. I worry about some of the text running off, you can't read it. Anyway, so some of the artists maintain a strong presence. Now, anyone know who band that is?
Yes.
That's Bugtick. That's Bugtick again today. That's a too new of a picture. It's a 2013 picture. But if you remember the clip we showed earlier with the guy with like the blondish hair that was down, you know, that's him in the middle right there. Now sporting dark hair with a feather boa looking thing. So yeah, not all bands broke up, you know, from the VK heyday. Bug a very big example. And then there's a lot of musicians who stuck to the scene. Kamijo and Hizaki are pretty obvious to point out. Kamijo, even though this genre's kind of stayed straight a bit here and there, you know, some of his singles, he's been solo, he's been in Versailles, he was in Lorraine, he was in New Sodomy, been in groups here and there. Hizaki, of course, has been in, you know, a lot of groups as well. Point is, there's a lot of musicians that have always stayed, so I want to just point that out there. And one of the big things that I'm going to talk about later on is some of the problems with the modern scene, and one of them is the short shelf life of modern VK groups. So I think it's really important to focus on this. Now the big poster child of these groups that have never broken up and who stayed relevant to today is Dirty Gray.
Who hasn't heard of Dirty Gray? Okay, good.
Oh, there's someone.
No, wait, there's one. Wait,
There's
no,
one.
no.
You're in for a surprise.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Talk about like style change.
Yeah.
So they formed pretty early. They formed when like VK was kind of like in its heyday and whatnot. And who here is a big fan of Dirty Gray? Now, it's cool to watch them because you can watch the progression of their first album and their early singles were very like traditional VK. But if you listen to the album, there's still a couple songs on that you could tell what they were leaning into. And then from like the second album on, they kind of developed their own sound, a very like hardcore mainstream sound. So they've been placed in a ton of genres. What's interesting is I don't think they would probably classify themselves as VK, but they really are, so to speak. A lot of people like to pin them in Edogudoke. Fun fact, if you want to stick around, I don't know how long you guys are going to be here, but we have a panel on Edogudo later on, the 18 plus panel. It's really crazy.
Right after this.
Yeah, FYI, if you want to see Edogudoke, you can stick around for that. But yeah, they're very influential. You want to talk about a bit about how awesome they are?
They're really cool. I think one of the first bands that I listened to when I got into VK, and rumor has it that they're going to be coming to North America soon.
Yeah.
So they're going to have a North and South America tour soon because they're doing Europe right now.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to mention that it's pretty, I have a note there too. It's pretty interesting. It's almost from the get-go. They were touring the world. Like they were going to Asia, of course, like, you know, that's where you go first if you're in Japan. But they came to the US pretty early on, like in 2000, well, not early on, but like 2004 for Withering to Death, I believe. Withering to Death? Is that the name of the album? It Withers and Withers, I remember what's the name of the tour, I don't remember the name of the album. Withering to Death.
But like usually Dirty Gray is like in the newer generation, like visual kids, like baby first band, everyone. Yeah. First, like if you notice, like earlier would be like Mouse Pies, this would be like basically that
a baby band.
Basically, it's the next generation baby band. Yeah. Yeah.
So we're gonna watch a clip of theirs. What's funny, speaking of the people who don't know who don't know who Dirty Gray is, this is from one of their newest. This is from the newest MV.
The newest, yeah.
Ningen wa Kabaru. What's funny is I remember when I made this clip, I actually had to like trim it a lot, because I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna make this like, even though this is a censored version, how to make it like.
How to make it all ages. Because
yeah.
when you watch the uncensored video, it's pretty graphic. So.
It's not like, it's not about nudity, but it's pretty just graphic.
Yeah.
It makes people uncomfortable.
Yeah. I was gonna say that I forgot what I was gonna say, but I was gonna say something about Shinya. Also, he was at Anime Expo 2015.
He was a fashion guest.
He was a fashion guest, and he's the drummer for the
It
band.
was the year after, before last year.
I don't know if anyone ever plays plays like The Walking Dead, like Telltale Adventure games, you know. Anyone play those? I'm about to make a joke that's gonna fall flat if you haven't. But when I see that scene, I remember like the scene from the second episode where they're eating the person, and you have the option to stop them from eating them. And whenever I see that scene, I think of that whole thing where you can run downstairs, you could like, you could yell at, what's her name? I forget her name. You could yell at her to not eat it, or you could be a jerk to the other guy and go ahead and eat it. And they eat the people.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's just...
Oh, I remember what I was going to say.
What?
If you ever see them live, his vocal range is absolutely crazy. Like, he does some really, really low growls, and you just heard like his higher voice. And he could hit those notes in live too. Like, there's no auto-tune or faking anything. He's a really good voice.
It's like definitely if you can see this band live,
Do
definitely
it.
go.
You at least want to see them once.
Yes.
Their live shows are really mesmerizing. Like, they're visual on stage. Yeah.
Like his movements are so
Yeah.
lit and it's amazing and it's hypnotic.
Yeah.
Be prepared, you know, for some of the songs, and if you want to sit up. Maybe don't go to the front unless you're ready for a potential mosh pit, though. Just
Yeah.
FYI.
At least he doesn't bleed on people anymore.
Anymore?
So this is kind of one of our bigger things of this whole. I love how that font's so different. I look over there, what are you guys looking at? Anyway, so current problems with the visual KC. So don't worry, we have some bands we'll talk about later on. I wish I might move some bands to the front because I feel like we're just gonna rag on them all. They're like, oh, here's some good bands. But yeah, so now the relevance of Visual Kei. Is Visual Kei still relevant today?
In a sense, to a certain degree, but not a lot of people know about it.
The thing is, it's really complicated. Now, I mentioned before how a lot of these groups, you know, back in the late 80s or throughout the 90s, these were like really big groups. These were filling arenas. Malice Miser did some Budokan concerts, they did some other concerts in other arenas. They did some other big venues. They sold out shows. Some of the festival appearances were huge. Don't get me wrong. If you go to a festival now, those are still big as well. When you go to some of the one-mans, gosh, I don't remember the name of the group anymore. There was a group that did a one-man in Budokan, I want to say a couple years, like 2 years ago. And they were a bit ambitious. And they didn't sell enough tickets, so what they did was they draped and they covered like the sides of the arena, and they moved everyone towards the middle. And there have been other stories like that. I don't know the name of that group. That's obviously one you research yourself. But there's a couple other groups that I'll leave nameless who have mentioned, like off the record during some interviews we've done, in the past, how like certain shows, like 3 people showed up to our show. And if I mention the names of these groups, you might be like, really? It's like, because these aren't like, those random groups you never hear of. These are names that, you see every so often, releasing new stuff, and always have the MVs out, and that have representation here in the US. But, by that same token, I don't want to say that, it's all bleak and dire in Japan, but by that same token, it seems to have gained, I don't want to say gained, but it seems to have maintained a certain level of popularity overseas. I'm not sure really what that's owed to, but anyway.
Well, I think it's definitely like staying relevant. Like a lot of like Visual Kei bands like sing for anime openings, right?
Yeah.
And that's in a way kind of maintained because anime is always going to be a staple. And I think that's how they kind of maintain.
Stay relevant.
Exactly.
Now, a lot of groups do a lot of groups have done concerts like standalone, like Duran Gray has done. Obviously Duran Gray has never, as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, but Duran Gray has never played like an anime convention. They've always done solo concert tours, around the world and whatnot. A lot of groups aren't so lucky. That's actually where a lot of the groups kind of go. Now, you just mentioned some of the anime openings, but I think next year, gosh, I don't remember the name of the con anymore. Lantana's going to some con on the East Coast. And I'm not saying he's wrong with that per se, but you get it in all the music genres, but it's like they have nothing to do with anime, but they're there. And you get that a lot. I don't know, it's interesting. A lot of the groups don't really want to do the concerts, that's kind of like, that's the easiest route to go. It's complicated. But I think a bigger point of all this is what Visual Kei means today. What do you think it means today?
I think it's kind of lost its deeper deeper meaning, and it's definitely more about what you look like than the music. Because the lyrics are more stupid. The music is more stupid. It's simple. It's auto-tuned. It's lame. There are a couple bands that are popped up that are pretty like unique, and they're bringing something like that's really refreshing to the table. But when you compare them to the old bands, just like you compare rock stars today in the Western world, you cannot find anyone like Kiss and Rob Zombie and like all the other older bands. There's no one like them anymore. So that's the thing with Visual Kei. There's not going to be something new. Everything's like repackaged.
Everything's done already.
Like I want to say, like I love Visual Kei. Like I love it, but I play devil's advocate. I feel like all the new bands just sound all the same.
They sound the same.
They look alike. Like I'm sorry, like I'm Asian, and usually I can tell Asians apart. But like it's getting to a point that everyone looks the same. It has the same style, same makeup, same hair, and even the same singing technique, and it's not even good anymore. And that's the problem. And Visual Kei now I feel like it's become more of a money game.
Yeah.
Like
It's like money and hoes.
Exactly.
That's pretty much what did you say? Money and hoes.
Oh, you didn't say money and hoes. I didn't know you actually said hoes.
No, yeah. Like actually, if you look at a lot of interviews, like with like a lot of Visual Kei, like a lot of these members actually admit that they become Visual Kei like singers or like band members to get girls. And it's getting ridiculous, and it's just the quality is like lessening. It's like everything's made in China.
You're the only one who wants to say that.
I'm Chinese, so.
One of the problems I personally see with it, going off of what they're going on, is that even though a lot of these groups look and sound the same, and we're going to talk about that a bit later on too, and go a bit more into that, even though a lot of these groups look and sound the same, okay, we interview a lot of VK groups. I'll just go about this point this way.
Shameless plug.
Yeah, AJConnections.com, everyone. But no, we do. And I like to ask, because I think it's a pertinent question. It's an interesting question I want to hear the answer to. It's like, what do you guys think about the current state of Visual Kei? Like, how do you guys think you fit into it? And of course, there'll be some people who answer like, yeah, we look up to Extra Pan, we look up to Third Grade, we think we're etc. But no, the vast majority of the answers to those questions are some variation of, we're not Visual Kei. And these are groups that are very obviously Visual Kei. Like if you go to, for those of you, who's been to Japan? Now, for those of you who know that if you go to the big record stores, there's actually a visual section, like, visual, and you'll find these groups in the visual section. But yet, we interview them, and right from their mouths, they'll say they're not Visual Kei. And they'll, the answers will go on from there, the variations thereof. It's interesting, it's just like, I don't know, it's almost like they want to distance themselves from it as well.
Like, don't quote me on this, I think the Zet one time said like, yeah, no, we're not Visual Kei.
Oh my god, what did I do?
I think they're tired of that.
Yeah.
You skipped back a bunch of.
Yeah.
I touched my mouse pad and
Stop touching things.
Anyway, well, let's move on to the next slide anyway. So it kind of ties into it. So one of the other, I think this is probably even bigger than the relevance, is the current Visual Kei band shelf life. Okay. Now bands break up all the time, and it's one of the bands I showed earlier was a band called Derlanger, if you recall, way back then. Now they were only around, well, they were actually around like pre-recorded for many years, but they were only really around for like 3 or 4 years, and then the singer moved on to a band called Dying Cries, and they were only around for another 4 or 5 years. So bands breaking up, in short periods isn't necessarily uncommon, but it seems to be the norm now. Like,
they just keep it short and sweet.
Yeah.
Because, like I said earlier about them kind of feeling like repackaged items, and they're very manufactured. Like they're under a label. They dress the same, they look the same, sound the same. And so eventually fans, obviously, they're not gonna find them relevant. They're gonna be like, oh, well, you just sound like this other band, and then 3 people show up to their concerts, and then their label is like, we're gonna split you guys up and put you in different bands because you guys aren't making any money for us. So that's what happens. They break up, and then they get different names and different looks.
There's actually a huge there's actually a huge article that's always in the Visual Kei community. It's called Confessions of a Visual Kei Manager. And if you can find that, look that up because it actually does address this. They say that, so what happens happens is that a lot of these new members, or if you look at a lot of these members, you'll see Exodus is becoming like a notch on the bedpost or something like that. And the reason why is that like they'll repackage them, as Kat said, and then they'll give them a certain time to make a certain amount of money. If they don't make it, that's why you'll see a lot of like be like, oh, this is our last concert, and we can get 100 sales or 100 or like a certain amount. They will break up.
They threaten you or they
exactly.
You. You know, if we don't get 100 tickets, we're gonna break up.
Yeah, and then if they don't get it, like the company will break them up and repackage them into another band to see if that's successful.
It gets very dark.
Exactly.
It's not just like a rock music, you know, it's like rock and roll, whatever, like they have it here in the Western world. It's really, it has a much deeper side to it. It can get really messed up.
So if you can find that article, it actually goes way in depth into all this stuff that we're talking about, so definitely check it out again. Sorry.
Yeah, and then same thing is like, a lot of times other bands form. My favorite, Meteoroid, I remember the name. There was a group called Meteoroid, and they broke up, and then some of the members went on to form a band called Green. And we interviewed Green. We interviewed them, they were together for about 6 months. We interviewed them, and because of a lot of nonsense with timing, by the time we got the interview out, they'd only been about a month later, they already announced they were breaking up, like 2 months later. And it was just like, come on. And so yeah, that's not a rare occurrence. A lot of times they'll form other bands, and that band will break up, and then the members split off, and so on. My other favorite thing, which you see a lot of, are the members who are ghosting.
There's weird cases on this one. They literally ghost their own band. So they'll disappear, they'll turn their phone off, and there's been like band members that like will send out police alerts, like, hey, missing person, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then they'll find them locked in the room eating pizza.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is actually more normal.
It's common.
It's very, very common. It's like, you think it's crazy, but it's like, it happens. I think like, wasn't like a couple months ago, at least 3 like members of like different bands did exactly.
Yeah, it happened. It's happened a lot recently. It's kind of ridiculous. I thought it was like, oh, it's kind of interesting when that one person did it, but no, it's happened a lot.
It's stressful.
Yeah.
It's just stressful.
So yeah, so it seems to be that the shelf life of VK bands now is only a couple years. So even though this, like I said, this happened before, but this is like the norm. These are like the big names of the genre, so to speak. These are the new groups that you look forward to, that when they form, and then they're just, you know, yeah. And of course, it's kind of hard to go along with it, but of course high profile groups like Sub break up as well. Now, this is the big point. This is we're moving on from that. The big point, the new visual kei genres. Okay, so, okay. I don't really like genres, I'll be fair. Okay, subgenres is a better word. So when I say genres, think of subgenres. Now, I'm not a huge fan of subgenres because I'm also a fan of, like, you know, rock and metal music. And I can't tell you how many times I get to argument with people, and I make this joke all the time, but it's true. I've heard people say things just like this. Like, oh, that's not rock, that's post-punk, progressive, you know, alt, neo, whatever. And they'll go on like that. I'm like, oh.
It's the same thing with visual kei.
Yeah, so I don't really like it, but let's be real here, it's very big. Now we glanced over all those bands earlier on, but there were so many subgenres, like in the 2000s, like we had, of course, Anka and Sug were very popular for the genre known as...
What?
I'll make sure you guys say Oshaya Kei. Somebody said it out there. Yeah, I saw you guys like playing with the slide, I'm like, let me see if they're paying attention. But yeah, Oshaya Kei.
That's my favorite.
And of course, there's, you know, lots of genre. That was kind of like the big genre, the big new genre, so to speak, in the past period. So it's always marked by this. Now, is there a strong current sound in VK? I think there is.
What do you mean?
Okay, I'll turn this on to you guys, by the way. Who here recalls both Eunice and Kaz, like about 20 minutes ago, saying that all the new bands sound alike?
Yeah.
Does anyone remember that? Because I heard them say it.
Yeah.
And I'll admit to it too. There is a sound right now. There really is. There is a sound that's...
Even though they all sound the same, the sound that they're sounding like is the new standard sound in visual
But
kei.
no, it has no name.
It has no name,
I find
yeah.
that so unusual that nobody has tried to name it.
I think there is kind of a new name. It's called Neo. I
No,
think
because-
we're naming it Neo now. Like Neo Visual Kei. Like I've seen this term actually starting to float around. I do hear the term Neo Visual Kei, especially like for bands like right now Roy's basically kind of started.
I think a lot of newer bands are definitely influenced by Western hardcore music. If you like grew up in like seeing like the hardcore scene, they definitely sound like that. Most of them, especially vocals.
So there's some styles like Angela Kei has grown a lot, Ido Kei has grown a lot, so on. But there hasn't been anything new. Like there hasn't been the new Kei, so to speak, new style. And it's funny because like I hear that all the time. Like it's not just Cassie Eunice, it's not just me. Everyone's always like, oh, I don't like VKEI anymore because all the bands sound alike, all the bands sound alike. And I find that so funny. Like I've personally never heard the Neo thing. I've heard Neo visualism or whatever. That was what Miyavi's thing was about 10 plus years ago. But yeah, there is a current sound. I really wish it had a catch-all name because I think that would really help the scene a bit. But then again, like I mentioned, a lot of these bands probably would never really do that because when you bring it up to them, they're like, oh, we're not VK, we're rock, we're
old sound.
Yeah. Oh God, I don't remember which band it was. They're like, I don't think it was Zombie. Zombie just a group we interviewed recently, and they were like, oh, we're not like Visual Kei, we're not whatever sound, we're the Zombie sound, because that's the band name. We're our band name sound.
I've actually interviewed A-to-J Connection, interviewed this singer that is locally, and it's so obvious that he's like very Visual Kei, it's the styles, whatever. And I asked him, I'm like, oh, would you consider? He's like, oh no, I'm not Visual Kei. And I'm like, dude, you're like in denial, and it's crazy.
So I'll leave you with this question. We're not really going to answer it. Do we still need subgenres?
I think so.
I think we do, to be honest. I think we need it so when I do panels like this, I have a place to put them in, so I can,
It's called OCD, man.
Yeah, so I can not have a panel where I talk about how they don't have a genre. Anyway, so another key point is when artists evolve out of VK. A non-VK feature. Now, I have the Yoshikitty thing there because I'm like, I mentioned this, it was on my Facebook, but it's public, so you guys can see it if you look at my Facebook. But I mentioned it, well, not all my posts are public, that post I made public, because I'm like, I am so over, like, all the Yoshi, because I got like 4 press releases on Yoshikitty, like, the past couple months, about like, always moving up the ranks, I'm like, what about the new Extra Pan album? When's that coming out? But anyway.
I'm basic, I like Yoshikitty.
So yeah, probably just due to lost relevance. A lot of these people move on from VK. There's soloists like Gak, Klaha, Miyavi, who don't really, like Gak, a lot of people still like to classify Gak to Miyavi as Visual Kei.
Miyavi is definitely alive, especially if you went to his last concert, it's...
like Miyavi covered like POD, a POD song, and like Utilization and like... Oh yeah, he did.
I wasn't there.
No, not at the concert, but like he covered.
Yeah, he did. I forgot about that.
Covered Rockstar.
Well, Miyavi has actually stated that he left Visual Kei for his sake of his daughters. He wanted his daughters to be able to like look at their dad, and like respect him. So I actually respect that.
Visual Kei isn't the safest.
Yeah, I interviewed Miyavi, another plug, Eventual Connection. I interviewed Miyavi on his last tour, and he mentioned that too, how like he started out Visual Kei and now he's this, now he's that. So he doesn't think so VK. Gakt, of course, is very like similar in that like, the genre might be there, but it's like, they might be thrown into that, but they're really not.
I will say that Miyavi and his daughter though are so cute, especially on concert.
Oh, yeah.
It was the most adorable thing. So you can find like videos of that. It's so cute.
If anyone's a fan of Malice Miser, anyone know Tetsu? That's like Malice Miser's first first recorded vocalist. I don't know if I might want to say they have another for that, but Tetsu is their first vocalist. He was on their first EP. I like to point him out. I don't have any clips of him in this thing. There's a lot of clips here later on. Don't worry about like the people who change. But he went from like fronting Malice Miser to just becoming a straight hard rock star, kind of straight rock sound. It's pretty crazy. This happens all the time. But yeah, a lot of times you don't see this kind of stuff because a lot of the stuff is available in English, especially for Tetsu. But let's talk about some high-profile people who have changed in the scene. The first one I'm talking about is Takadu from Sug.
Has been on.
Now, for those of you who don't know, talking to the vocalist for Sug. They were one of the big groups in the Oshada Kei scene. And he's had some other projects. He has a fashion brand company called Orchestra. And he was in the US, he was in LA, I should say.
Promoting that, it was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago he was in LA promoting his
The
brand.
pop-up store.
So you could have met him there when he was. Oops, I went too far. So yeah. So initially last year around this time, July, they were going on hiatus, and at the end of the year they made it official. Now.
Before then, though, he started his own what's it called?
The project Sleepyhead, right?
No. The one that he I Kill You. He did his own solo thing.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he did his own solo thing, and then he came up with the song started I Kill You song. And I don't know, there was a name for that. Sorry, I forgot. I'm going off tangent, but there was an amazing time that he announced that, and then he didn't really do anything with that after that.
I actually remember that. To be honest, I'm not a huge fan. Didn't really follow him that well. After the Sug thing, the hiatus kicked in, I should say. But he does have a new group called Sleepyhead, or a new project, I should say. I don't know if there's other members in said project. Now, who knows who Sug is? And who knows? Have you guys heard Sleepyhead? Oh, no one has. Okay, so for those of you who knew who Sug was, keep that in mind. And listen to this, and for those who don't know who Sug was, keep in mind. Oh, I don't remember that at all. So keep in mind that this was somebody who used to be Visual Kei.
He's really cute. I love his smile. I'm sorry.
So, want to bounce with him in the club? I'm a sucker for that Super Famicom thing at the end. But yeah, that's very different from Sug. What?
Did you guys ever hear about Dive? D-I-D? No? Okay, whatever.
Oh,
Chisa
yeah.
went from doing really old school VK, and then Ahmed, I don't know if he was an Ahmed when he did Kiss Me. Did you ever hear that song?
No.
It's very poppy like that.
Oh, really?
So it's a huge difference from harsh vocals and guitars to really poppy club music.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate again. I feel like a lot of these singers are starting to sound very K-pop.
Yeah.
The dancing, the style.
That's where my opinion of manufactured comes from, because they feel like produce. Almost.
Yeah. If you look at I was talking about Takeda's previous Uwakimono with I Kill You. You look at it, I'm just sorry. I just see G-Dragon. It's very K-pop, and it's same thing with what's his name? The one from the guy that Kelly likes. The one he interviewed at.
X4?
Yeah, what's his name? Starts with M. Yeah, Yuya Matsushita. I'm sorry. He sounds so freaking K-pop right now. I love him, but I'm just oof. Yeah. It's a money game. Whatever's selling is what they're going to. Just saying.
So
I'm ready to cry.
another modern example is Mejibre. So Mejibre broke up last year sometime. I don't remember the exact dates. And Suzuku, the vocalist of Mejibre, looked like that. And now it does like this. You know what? I want to play the video. We're going to start with the new group, and then we're going to end with Mejibre for a little difference. You can see the true difference.
This is a new one.
Oh, this features 2 members of Mejibre, I should say. Even though we just talked about Suzuku, it features 2 members. Koichi, the guitarist and the vocalist.
It's a bassist.
Oh, shit.
Stop.
Same vocalist, same bassist.
that was like my biggest inspo. They were like my biggest VK band. So when Suzuku was like all goth and stuff, and then I found that picture of Adidas, I felt cheated on. I was like, is that what is that really? I don't know if he was just not really goth. Like if that wasn't his I can't tell what's his true self because Visual Kei is so manufactured. So I can't tell if when he was in Magic Braid they made him look scary, or if that's really who he was, or now he's like
big enough to.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I don't know if it was the designers that made him shave his hair or himself that was like, oh, I don't like looking scary anymore, I'm gonna tone it down.
Exactly. There's like a thing about like Visual Kei too, like in the beginning, I think the same thing with here in America, like with Lady Gaga. In the beginning, like it's the record company that makes you look this way, so it sells.
Yeah.
And when you get big enough, that's when you have the power and ability to actually do what you want to do. And that's kind of the thing here, like we don't.
Yeah, so I don't know what was going on, but yeah.
So next thing we're talking about is VK around the world.
Oh,
this debate.
I'm ready.
Yes.
I'm
So-
ready to talk some tea.
I used to go at this from a different angle, so this is kind of from a new angle these days. I don't know if anybody's come to our panels for a while. Like, we do these panels, I update them all the time, of course, and I change them around, I do different topics, but I've covered VK around the world before, so this is kind of a new take on it. So there are countless bands that influence the VK. The one right there on the right, I don't actually have them named, but that's Batar, I don't know how to pronounce that name. Batar, I believe they're from Sweden, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they're Swedish. And their vocalist, and
I will go off if you.
what's his name?
Indigo.
Indigo. I'm like, Sigma? Indigo. There you go. Yeah.
He's
Actually,
something else.
I'll leave it at that. Go watch his videos if you want a laugh or two. I'll just leave it at that. I kind of, sorry if I can't read the font. I kind of like pressed that into the thing. So, to be fair, not all of them consider themselves Visual Kei. But it's complicated. There's some people, like for example, the vocalist from Batar, who argues, and other people do this too. I've heard many people argue about, like, you know, what makes a group VK? Can you be VK?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. You can say in a second. I'll just cut to the chase. Who here thinks a group not from Japan can be considered Visual Kei? You can go and say yeah. I mean, I'm kind of, my hand's kind of halfway up, so I'm just like, I don't really know. But who here thinks a VK band can come from anywhere in the world? It can come from the US, it can come from Canada, it can come from, you know, China. Don't worry, we got some examples here.
Yeah, like feel free.
I'm just
I have
curious.
no opinion.
Who has no opinion? Oh, this is like somebody has to. It's fine.
Who
Anyway.
thinks that Visual Kei is only Japanese?
I'm leaning like half toward that and half toward
Yeah.
I could be from anywhere. So.
It's mostly from Japan. So.
It's one of the biggest points of contention. Now, to be fair, I talked to some groups and some record labels, some people, like, you know, both on and off the record, in interviews and just talking to them randomly about how some of them do appreciate it, because most people would. You know, it's like, oh, it's kind of awesome that, you know, you guys are like doing VK here in the US, doing VK here in Europe, doing VK in China, where have you. But the fans, a lot of fans, I have never, we did this at PMX time, was like a crowded room, and I had a more positive outlook on this, and I spun it in a more positive way. And I'm like, who here is accepting a VK from around the world? And it was like blank stares.
I remember that.
Oh, you were there? Yeah, it was like, I was like, oh damn, never mind then. But yeah, a lot of people argue about the whole thing about like VK, you know, should it just be from Japan? Because of course, like, you know, GR, I don't know, it's complicated.
If you're gonna do it right. Don't half-ass it. Because this, I will keep my tone at like I'll keep my tone down just because it's an all ages panel. But Indigo looks like he works at Hot Topic.
Yes.
He does.
No, this is a good picture. But if you see his normal videos, you see the things he talks about, he seems like an adolescent Hot Topic.
It's funny, I'll be real with you, I don't want to talk about Indigo and Batar, I don't want to rag on them that much, but I found this picture of Batar because I heard the name before. I actually didn't listen to their music. I heard the name before and I knew they were kind of like big in the non-Japan VK scene, so I put that picture there. And then I was looking up something else randomly and I came across like the, you know, is VK still alive or whatever that was called. There's a couple other videos he did about VK. Is VK, you know, relevant in Japan? And he Yeah, and I was like, oh my god, this guy. And I almost felt like taking that picture down, but I didn't want to replace it because it was like yesterday, so I left it. But there are a lot of groups.
Who remember Tokyo Hotel?
Oh my god.
Oh god.
Bill? Remember how he... Dude, he looks so
All I
good.
know about Tokyo Hotel is like Satsuki, from Red Francois and the Moonstream. Satsuki had that story. Were you there at that panel when we talked about that story? I love how I'm repeating someone else's story, but he was talking about how he was in Europe, he was touring Europe, and like that person thought that he was Tokyo Hotel, and he's like, and he didn't know what they meant until we went to the panel. He was like years later, he's at Anime Expo, he's at a panel, and someone asked him if he likes Tokyo Hotel.
I was at that panel.
Yeah, and he told like, years ago, they thought I was Tokyo Hotel in Europe, and I didn't know what they were talking about until right now. But anyway, that's my random, that's his random starts repeating. But yeah, so there's Serenity from Sweden, there's Dynamite from Sweden. Some of these groups aren't together anymore.
Starts with K.
Oh, Kerbera?
There we go. Holy capybara.
The two, wait, go back. Yeah, the two singers are the same exact person, and then he also has a third band
Called
named
Kerbera.
But,
Kerbera is a lot less VK than the others, honestly.
That's usually the one people think of, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's Melrose from Thailand, Taylor's Law from the USA, Miller from China. I didn't put his country. Madman Esprit
It's Korean.
is Korean. Korean and German, because he resides in Germany now. But
Shameless plug.
oh, shameless plug. I actually think you're right. I forgot. We interviewed Kyuho from Madman Esprit. I want to say Kyoho.
So check it out, AKJconnections.com.
So we're going to show two clips. One from Lilith, who unfortunately is no longer together.
Yeah, they broke up, I believe, 2017, 2016. But for someone that doesn't come from Japan, I think they pulled it off real well by influencing both Chinese culture and Japanese VK. I don't know, I'm biased about them. They're really good. So.
The Melrose song is more recent. What I like about these two groups and and the two songs particularly is Lilith from China, Melrose from Thailand, and they both sing in their respective languages. Usually when these groups are abroad, they either sing in Japanese or in English. But no, Lilith is Chinese and Melrose is singing in Thai. Accepting of those bands because
they're Asian.
Yeah, I don't know how to put that without like sounding a little.
No, you don't. I'm pretty. We're all three of us are thinking that, right?
Yeah.
If they come from Asia,
it's usually more acceptable.
It's better
because most people don't know the difference between Chinese and Japanese sometimes, and sometimes it's
like, I mean, I'll be real. I don't speak a lick of Thai, and I don't know. Some people might not speak it. Like,
no, I have like someone because I'm Taiwanese Chinese, and then someone. And if someone was like, oh wait, you're Taiwanese, so you're from Thailand?
Oh god.
Like, what? And I don't know, I'm sorry.
Anyway, so those are two groups, check them out. Well, Lilith, unfortunately, is no longer around. Check them out anyway. They're awesome. Well, they were awesome when they were around. Talk about the current state of visual kei. So now we got some couple things that we're talking about, like what's going on like today. No more Shocks magazine. This isn't that shocking because there's not really, magazines aren't really a thing.
That's true.
But if you go to Japan, they kind of are still a thing. You still have print media. You still have CDs, which is kind of the crazy
That's like
thing.
a whole another like huge
Exactly.
a huge tangent from this.
So concerts in the US are kind of slow. We kind of see a resurgence with the smaller groups and some conventions. But a lot of unless you're like during Greg or the Gazette or like,
Hi, Dracon.
So there's some rare exceptions like that, but a lot of these people have, you don't see them as often anymore. I remember like, especially in LA, obviously depending where you live, you're not gonna see that many to begin with. But in LA, I remember seeing a ton of groups. Really small. That's kind of the difference. You usually see the smaller groups, you don't really see anymore. And considered good or bad is the return of convention concerts. Because I remember there was a brief period, like when VKEI Fest happened, and then what was the other VKEI Fest? Unite Music Fest. Was other like things happen when they were standalone concerts. But now we're seeing a lot of convention things return. I think VKEI's a little odd in conventions, not so much because I don't think that the crowds fit. It's that imagine a VKEI concert here, for example, and these are the kind of venues that are holding some of these, like some of the current concerts that are going on. Imagine a VKEI concert next door at a convention center. I don't know if that's really the right scene, so it's kind of, I don't know, it's complicated.
I don't know, I started getting to visual kei because of Kaya and Cell that were at Expo.
Exactly. I was thinking something, but I probably shouldn't say that. Anyway, it's nothing bad, it has to do with behind the scenes things. So anyway, there's not as many VKEI-centric labels anymore, except anyway, that's fine. Except above the indie scene, there used to be a lot of VKEI labels would have an indie and a major branch. You don't see that as often. It's kind of more technical, but it's odd. So information in English is easy to find. Also you can go to ajconnections.com if you want more info. But yeah, it's all over the place. But and because of that, it's argued a lot of various circles, about how VKEI is probably arguably more popular in the US than it is in Japan.
Oh yeah, here, who knows Gazette here? Who's watched Kuroshitsuji? Black Butler.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Because the opening.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sugar, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then here we would think that, especially here Gazette sold a lot of tickets everywhere they came, but in Japan they couldn't even fill the venue, and that's crazy to us because we feel like they're such a huge band,
Yeah.
they're so popular, but in Japan they couldn't fill a venue. That's yeah.
One of the current big VKEI record labels, so to speak, is BP Records. Independent label, the indies, not a major label. They house 4 bands: Kiryu, Kodomo Dragon, Rise, Zero, HC, I don't know how you pronounce that. I think it's just Zero. Yeah, they've been active for a while. Hertz? I don't know. 0 Hertz. I've never thought of that. That could be it. I've never heard the name spoken out loud, so I don't know. So we're gonna watch some of their clips before we jump into this. Kodomo Dragon and 0 Hertz maybe. We'll talk about it a bit after, but we'll watch some of the clips first. I actually want to get some music going. I feel like I should beef up that middle section so there's more clips. Pretty awesome, crazy videos you ever watched. And these are all their more recent, yeah, by the way. Zero is coming out with a new MV soon, but it wasn't out by the time this panel was put together. Awkward close-up. That was a really awkward close-up. I've never noticed that before. But yeah, Kodomo Dragon is one of my current favorites. Zero is actually really new. I want to say that was either the debut, that MV, or was really close to it. They've only been together for less than a year. About a year. We'll say a year. So I don't know. It's probably been, because it's been so long since I've been in Japan, I get my dates wrong.
I also think this record label is pretty popular because, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong if other record labels do this, but they actually have them like together all the time. So like all those 4 bands are constantly doing like game shows together and collaborations together. So they're all like a huge VK base.
There was a like an MV that had all.
Yeah, they had
together.
before Zero was part
Before
of
Zero was
that,
the
that BP record. They had Kidu, Royce, and Kodomo Dragon do a triple like VK song, and like all the guitarists would do one piece, all the drummers would be like on their drum set, and it looked pretty cool.
It's really, yeah.
So next time about is Royce and Kidu. Kidu is especially unique because they have the Angano case sound, which is a bit more like traditional. Exactly. Fair notice, I mentioned they're all the most recent songs. Kidu is not the most recent because I don't like the new MV.
Yeah.
So I didn't feel like putting it in here. So I put their second most recent one. I love this song. The video that the dog that keeps me on the video though. About KDU is they technically disbanded. They used to have an alter ego like idol group called My Dragon. So yeah.
Fun trivia: the singer for Royce actually confirmed that he's half American because there was like a huge.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
It was at the Q&A, but then because for a while, for years actually, people were like, "Oh, he looks so different. Is he mixed? Is he this?" And then people were always guessing, like, you know, oh, like maybe he's this, but he actually could finally confirm that he's half American. His dad's American or something like that. I love them.
So we're gonna toss in some other current VK groups we're gonna talk about for a brief bit. Race is a cool new group. These are both pretty new. Now, Viva Rush is really interesting because Viva Rush, we talked about we talked about Oshada Kei. We talked about Oshada Kei earlier. We talked about how unfortunately the 2 biggest groups, so to speak, of the genre, I'm sorry, taking really far with the mic. The 2 biggest groups of the genre, Saga and Ankafe, aren't together anymore. I guess Ankafe is technically still around, but they're not together anymore. So it's cool to see a modern Oshada Kei group, which is Viva Rush's second group there. So pay special attention to them.
Spay and neuter your pets,
So yeah, this is Viva Rush. Eunice over here is saying that I'm 100% on shot.
No, I like it, but it's like, for someone like, I don't know, I like it. I'm just like, it's not 100% shot, which is interesting. It's like you see an evolution of like the style with the sound and artists.
Now the next two are groups that are kind of like really high on the radar these days. I hope that they move on to bigger and greater things. Because there are some groups like Diora and Harlequin. I mean, they're awesome. They're still together.
Yeah.
But it kind of feels like
They died down.
yeah, like the huge fervor when they came out and everyone's so excited for
Especially
them.
with Harlequin, like they
Oh,
had
Harlequin.
such a huge, like people were like fighting for the like singer to be on their label, and then now it's kind of.
Now it's kind of like, I mean, they're still there.
Oh
These
yeah,
guys though, these are my two personal favorite new bands. 0.1 Gino Gosan, I saw them in Japan. They are so good. The lead singer with the cat ears, I think it is. He's so involved with the fan base. He'll like jump into the audience and like dance with you and stuff. He's really cute. He's like a little grandma's boy, so innocent. And the band on the right is the one that I'm telling you is like really refreshing. Their sound is refreshing. Their look is refreshing. They have a new concept every song.
It's funny you say that.
Stop.
Yeah, the reason she said that is because like when Kizu released, this is their fourth single by the way. When Kizu released her second single, I sent it to Kat.
Oh yeah. Okay, so I kind of just like skipped through the video and I was like, these guys suck.
Yeah, I said to her like, this is a new group you should watch. And she's like, they suck.
Yeah.
And now she's like Kizu's biggest fan.
Yeah. I just needed to really like pay attention to their music.
it's like sometimes you just have to like take it in
Yeah.
and another, just like soak it in.
Yeah.
But we'll check out some of their music as well. Oh, and then they also have the Angela Kei style sound as well, I should mention. I just studied them. No, this is song, and for those of you fans of Very Great, it has a very Dirt
It
Gray
does.
style
That's what I was
sound.
thinking actually.
That have the vocals that I talked about earlier? I don't know if that clip had it.
Cat screech vocals.
Oh, I didn't have the other vocals, like Cookie Monster gets his cookies. There's a style of vocals you hear in VKEI a lot these days.
Very cat scratchy.
No, it's like you hear it like really fast, like the death vocals, and I call that Cookie Monster finally gets his cookie vocals. Because it sounds like that, like it was but I don't know if you, I think I cut it out, like, you hear it a lot. So, these are two of my personal favorite groups.
Yeah.
Shameless plug.
Shameless.
Yeah, the Acme interview is coming up soon. It's actually done. If Anime California wasn't happening, it'd be published by now. But since this is happening, I didn't have time to finish it, and I won't do it until Monday. But we have an interview with Acme that's done. It'll be up like Tuesday.
So be on the lookout
Yeah.
at ajconnections.com.
And Zombie, we did an interview. I mentioned that earlier. We did an interview with them as well. So you can watch these clips of them. If you like them, check them out because they're really awesome and they're both really new groups. Acme is a group that Kaz mentioned that has Chisa in there. He used to be in the group Dive. So the next two.
Wait.
What?
Were you guys at Anime Expo?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you guys see the fashion show? No.
The vocalist.
The vocalist from Acme was he modeled and then he sang at the halftime
Yeah.
show. So it was good. It was
Yeah, he did a couple meet and greets there as
yeah,
well.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
The last two groups where we just open to questions and wrap it up. Dimlin is kind of a somewhat of a new group. Now, they're the group that there's more to say about them, but I'll just say this. If you watch the clip I show, you're gonna hear a brief clip, a brief part in that song. You'll know what I'm talking about when you hear it, is the Cookie Monster gets his cookie vocals segment, and you'll know what I mean. And Mimi Zook at the end, right there, is a really cool, very, very new group. They haven't even debuted. The new single's not even out yet. The clip I'm going to show is literally a part of their trailer. I'm just so in love with them. We're trying to interview them. We might have an interview, but it's kind of wonky because they haven't debuted yet. It has two members from Cycle Hashem. It has a member from the vocalist is from a band called Cascade. And their respective groups are still together. This is just another project. So
Dimlin has a very Darren Gray look and
Yes.
sound. They're definitely influenced by
yeah, these are very. Oh, and another thing about Mimi Zook is that they have a very, very old school sounding sound. When you hear it, okay, it's really. I put these together just because I wanted two on a slide. That's the way I do things in my life. I don't know. It's how I do things. They really don't belong together. The first one, like Kaz mentioned, is very Darren Gray. You can hear that vocal style I mentioned. Mimi Zook is a very, very old school. If you're a fan of Loren, if you're a fan of like Malice Miser, like any kind of Malice Miser, I guess, things like that, you kind of get the vibe. I'm sure you'll see what I mean. Once again, I apologize for the music video. It's just a trailer. I cut a bit of that, but it's still awesome. Vocals there either. Whatever. This song. I love that song. I love that sound. And it's funny because you listen to Cascade, the vocalists of the group, they sound nothing like that. Cycle of Shepherd has kind of a similar sound, but they sound nothing like that either. Fun fact, they have a vocalist, they have a drummer, they have a bassist, and their guitarist, Aya, who plays guitar in Cycle of Shepherd, he plays guitar he played guitar in Big Speakers Inc., some other groups. He's actually not, he's listed as Clown. He's like their clown. I don't know, it's kind of cool. Check them out too. So our little, last little thing is the future of VK. Visual Kei as a genre in 2018. I mentioned this before, it's more of a catch-all term these days. And how a lot of these groups don't consider themselves VK today. I like to always point that out, is how many groups still look like that. Because if you recall, the very first point I ever mentioned, by the way, that band is called Color. I kind of tossed their name out at the very beginning. That's Color. The guy in the middle right there is Dynamite Tommy. He's going to be important in a second. But, oh, shameless plug, meet every Dynamite Tommy as well. See, I forgot about that, because that's not to brag, we do so many, I forgot about that one. Yeah, meet every Dynamite Tommy. See how many bands still look like that? Because if you recall earlier, we mentioned that, it's a very visual genre.
Okay, so there is the American visual Kei bands that we talk about, Salem's Lot from
I think they're the only band.
The only group that still looks like that.
The vocalist looks like the guy with the bandana, definitely.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember earlier when I was going through the VK around the world, I kind of just glanced over since it was lost from the USA.
Check them out.
Yeah, they're awesome. They're a local band actually, as in like in this Southern California
They're
area.
playing the whiskey.
And they have a Japanese.
Bassist. Oh yeah, I like to point that out because out of all those groups, out of all like the 30 or 40 people with those pictures of all the groups around the world, they're the only one who has a Japanese member.
Kei is the best.
Yeah. But yeah, so Dynamite Tommy, he's the one in the middle right there. He claims, and I think he said something similar in the interview we did.
He did.
But even before that, like we talked to him off the record, and he mentions how VK, as he knows it, he feels doesn't exist anymore. Which is arguably true.
I actually very much agree with that term because when you have a term, like, you know, for America, like, you know, you have rock and you know which bands are rock and then that kind of stuff. But with Visual Kei, the term has been around so much for so many different bands, for so many different looks and sounds. It doesn't exist as it used to, and it's just kind of evolved in a
The
way.
same thing with American rock, though. I was arguing about this with you earlier. I thought Manson was the last original.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
I've never seen anyone come after him. Like, it was like the world just like pooped him out. He was the last one. So no more rock stars.
We'll argue
Stop
about
it.
that back in the room later on. But
But I agree with it, like, you know, that it's not the same anymore. The original Visual Kei that we known before doesn't exist. It's like when you have a broom and then you keep on replacing the part, is it the same broom again?
I like the broom analogy.
Yeah, but you know what I mean though. You get it like a dust bag.
I don't know, I was gonna have a random aside, but I've had too many random asides that don't do VK. So is Visual Kei dead? We're not really gonna answer these questions, but I don't know, popularity in both US and Japan is arguably dropping, except for all of the biggest. And lack of innovation, whether new genres, I don't know. There's a lot of old as new kind of stuff going on. And of course we already mentioned all the problems about all the short shelf life. And the biggest thing of all is, will it ever be truly mainstream commercial again? I think the short answer to that last one is no. Can it get bigger? Yes. Will it ever be at the height of it was? No. I think those days are long gone. We're talking 20 years gone. Of course, if you're ex-Japan, because ex-Japan's almost become like a cultural thing, you know, in Japan. They're Japan's Rolling Stones. They're Japan's, you know, Guns N' Roses. I can't even give other examples there. So they're that level of big, VK or not. But not that many groups attain that kind of status. So yeah. And we've got 2 minutes. If anyone has any questions, we have 2 more minutes, then we're gonna start.
I found this picture.
Oh yeah, we found this picture. It was funny because like I didn't know how to edit it, and I was like, I just did it really fast. Like I wanted to put the Village Vanguard logo, so I just like questions, man.
If you go to Japan, go check out Village Vanguard.
I love Village Vanguard.
Really cool shop. I love
That's like my favorite store. But anyway, any questions? I don't know if any hands in this corner raise it higher. Questions? Maybe kind of, sort of.
Any comments?
Any comments? Things we didn't cover? Things you're curious about?
Any spiels? You want to throw in sometimes? It's fine too.
Did anyone actually know my reference to the Walking Dead video game? Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Because I was worried about that. I was like, oh man, does anyone get my reference about like, her name is Clementine, by the way. I don't know, that came to me as the panel went on. You could either like, Clementine, no! Or you could be like to the older guy you don't like in the game, you could be like, go ahead and eat it. And he eats it and then you kill him later on. But anyway, or I did anyway, you can make your own choices in that game. I mean, you can choose not to kill him and somebody else does it. But yeah, so thank you all for coming.
We took this picture at Pecan last
Oh yeah. That's our picture.
Shameless plug.
We took that picture at Pecan, that's Pentagon, that's them wearing Disney outfits. It's funny, I actually forgot about that picture.
It was for Halloween concert.
Yeah, we took that picture, well I took that picture. But anyway, quick plug before I actually wrap things up, is if you guys want to stick around, we're doing a panel on Edo next. And I pretty much assume we're done with this. Is anyone not 18? I'll trust you all.
Does
So,
anyone
yeah,
not know what Edogudo is?
as soon as this is done, I'm going to start playing some crazy clips to get people riled up so we can get actually started on that. So stick around for that if you want. But otherwise, we're going to be at PMX
This year.
well,
I'm
Hentai Con, that's here. I'm going to be at Kraken Con next month with some other people, so check us out, all these cons. We'll be at a lot of cons. Pretty much any con you can, especially in SoCal, we'll be at. a2jconnections.com. We do have annoying dashes in our website, so a-2-jconnections.com. Or you can just go to Facebook and all of our stuff is there. All of the links are there.
Just Google search it, it's a lot easier. It saves a lot of headache.
Exactly. Feel free to talk to us on social media, tweet at us, message us. Somebody will reply. It might be me. It might be other people because a lot of people manage our stuff, but I'll see it. And yeah, that's pretty much it for our VKEI panel.
Oh, man.
Thanks everyone for coming. Thank you for coming very late. I know you, so it's cool. So thank you all for coming. Once again, if you want to stick around for Edoguro, lock
That'd be
yourselves
great.
up.
It's gonna be fun.
Viewer discretion advised.
Yeah.
If you are squeamish, if you are uncomfortable with, are you?
If you're uncomfortable with blood and sex, just don't